YouTube decided I'm no longer allowed to use the music in my intro, so now, until I find another one, you're stuck with my voice.
What is up, guys? This is Lintheo. Can we get you a discussion video about card rarities and the correlation between it making you a good player or not, or if you are a good player or not? This has always kind of been apparent in the Yu-Gi-Oh community that if you play high rarity cards, it must mean that you are pro, and if you play low rarity cards, then you must be a scrub slash someone who can't, invest in the game, so therefore you can't be as good as the people who have the good cards. Now, a lot of people are going to agree and disagree with the different points in this video, but it's an interesting one to discuss. I do want to go into it. So, the kind of historical thing has always been that if you play high rarity cards, then it must mean that you're pro, that you're a good player, and you know your shit about the game. So if you go to a tournament and you sit there and someone flips over that CP Buck of Moon, you're just going to be there like, this should be fun, because obviously they must be pro. But I disagree with it, and a lot of people actually think that if someone flips over these really expensive cards, they've got the blinged out deck completely, that it means that they're going to beat you, they're better than you, just because they have these high rarity cards. And I completely disagree with that. Like, anyone can stand a chance with any form of deck. There's no difference between someone who plays a high rarity light swan versus a low rarity light swan, for example, because they're at the complete ends from common JDs to secret and ulti JDs. So there is no difference. The only difference is the player, and the cards don't actually do anything different. A lot of people actually talk about how certain card rarities mean that you draw them at certain times and there is a higher ratio of drawing them. So for example, if you play super Fire Fisted Brotherhood bears instead of ulti bears, then you're going to draw the bears quicker. Now, this isn't necessarily kind of true, and a lot of people just kind of make up these statistics, in my opinion. I've never really seen a correlation. I've done testing on it, I've done drawing cards, opening hands, and I don't really think that you actually see them more. There are certain card rarities like Hobby League that obviously you're going to see more because they're bent to fuck. And that's the only real exception to the rule, in my opinion. A lot of the older cards do have, are made thicker, so you can kind of manipulate that if you so wish. But that's not so much the rarity causing you to draw it, that's more the player manipulating the thicker cards. But going on to the whole thing of, does it make you a better player? It doesn't, in my opinion. It's down to the player. And if the player prefers common cards, then that's fine. If the player prefers like high rarity cards, that's fine. Arguably, the people who go out of their way to spend the money on the really expensive cards to trade higher when there are lower card rarities available, arguably can be considered the non-pro people, because why would you go to so much effort to bling out your deck when it doesn't make a single bit of difference? Now, I understand that some people who enjoy the archetypes really want to pimp out their deck because it looks nice to them. I'm one of those people. Some of my favourite decks I like to have, high rarity, because it's for me. It's not for anyone else, it's for me. But I don't go out of my way to, buy all these expensive cards. I trade towards them. It kind of only comes down to your personal preference on if you want to do it or not. It doesn't mean that you are better. I can rock up with a completely, really low rarity Herald deck. It doesn't mean that I'm going to perform any less than if I had my high rarity Herald deck. And it's just one thing that I've always kind of questioned people's logic on. If you see a kid, for example, with a high rarity deck, you must think, oh, this is a bit strange. How has he got all these cards? How is he good at this? If you see a kid with low rarity, then you're going to think, oh, he's just a kid. But that can also work in the kid's favour, because you can misunderestimate him and misplay. But it all goes down to people's perception of how they interact with someone who has these high rarity cards, their opinions and their thoughts going through their head at that time when they see someone with these cards. And I think it is a misconception that if you have high rarity cards, you are a better player. And I think that is one misconception that actually scares a lot of people in tournaments, especially when you start going at the start of the tournament and start working your way up. I've seen multiple times that people with these high rarity decks get absolutely smashed by people who have low rarity decks because they're a better player. They play the cards better. They have a better understanding. They don't necessarily have better cards because they are a better duelist. So it's a bit of an interesting one. It's always one that's caused a bit of controversy, and rarity whores have good names and bad names for multiple reasons. Sometimes people who are rarity whores and have these high rarity decks look down on other people who have the lower rarities and say that, oh, you're a scrub if you play this. On one hand, it's a bit of banter. Like, I will wind up some of my mates that have low rarity cards just because I like to wind them up and it is funny, but that is a mutual mutual kind of respect that we have, and we know that we're joking. But for someone to turn around, and people have said to me in previous times in tournaments, turned around and said, oh, that's not hollow enough, that's not high rarity, and I'm like, so? Every time someone said that to me, they have never beaten me. Every time someone says it and I beat them, I'll bring it up and say, so this low rarity card's just beaten you. And it's just kind of really entertaining to watch people kind of get really angry about it. But it is a bit of an unfair thing, especially when some people can't actually afford to spend the money on the high rarity cards, so they must settle, it's not a choice, they have to settle for the low rarity cards, and that is not a problem at all. I don't see any problem with that. Someone can rock up with a completely common deck, it's completely fine. I'm still going to take you seriously, because I don't like to underestimate people. I don't care if they're 9 or 10, or one of the highest ranking duelists in the community. I don't care who it is, I'm going to play you seriously. Unless it's a friend, and then I'll fuck about. But that's a separate matter. But that's it really. I want to know what you guys think about the discussion, about the actual topic of, if you're high rarity whore, let's say, does that make you a better player than others? So let me down in the comment section below. Like, comment, subscribe, and I shall catch you guys later.